Xiao Yu had achieved the top score in the imperial examinations, and I took the initiative to propose a fake death escape, promotion, wealth, and a dead wife. Xiao Yu, you're definitely the winner in life, I hinted to him. I've been your fake wife for so many years, even if I haven't done great deeds. I've put in hard work. I won't ask for much, just give me that frost blade from your study. How about it? Xiao Yu looked at me and smiled leisurely. How about I also give you 500 taels of silver for travel expenses? Overjoyed, I held his hand with tears in my eyes and said, Xiao Yu, you really are good to me. All these years, I haven't raised you for nothing. Xiao Yu's expression instantly darkened as he sneered, on New Year's Eve. You got drunk and took my innocence. How do you plan to settle that debt? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. When I was 14 and had achieved some skill in swordsmanship, my master tossed me a jade pendant. Go to the Xiao family in Jiangnan. A childhood marriage was arranged for you long ago. Go and get married. She left me with just that one sentence and went off to enjoy her freedom. I had just completed my apprenticeship and was eager to make my mark in the martial world. With no intention of getting married at all, as fate would have it, I happened to witness an injustice and intervened. Only to end up saving the Xiao family. To make matters worse, I was poisoned and needed some extremely rare herbs to cure it. As a wandering martial artist, my pockets were emptier than my face. How could I afford the medicine? You saved my life, young master, and that makes you a benefactor of the Xiao family. Come back to Jiangnan with me, and you'll enjoy endless wealth and luxury. At that time, Xiao Yu was only 13 years old, clearly a noble young master raised in silks and satins. He had also fallen ill due to his wealthy upbringing, and had run away from home with just one attendant, only to be mistaken for easy prey. If I hadn't kindly saved him, he would have long been sold off to some pleasure house to serve others. What are you wearing? Even the beggars in Jiangnan aren't as shabby as you. How could I possibly eat steamed buns? I'm telling you, I'd rather die than eat them. His attendant had died, and in order to get the money for medicine, I had no choice but to escort him back all the way. Along the journey, he either complained that the tea stalls were unclean, or grumbled that the steamed buns were too bland. I secretly hid the jade pendant, thinking to myself, I'd rather die than marry such an otherworldly young master. Xiao Yu was exceptionally handsome, with a spoiled and willful personality, and his eyes were as bright as the moon, making him quite endearing. Unfortunately, he just had to have a foul mouth. After finally managing to send him back to the Xiao family, the entire Xiao household, young and old, cried with such intensity. I pushed through the crowd and approached Master Xiao, speaking politely. In order to save the young master, I was poisoned. I urgently need 500 taels to purchase medicinal herbs. I beg for your kindness, Master Xiao. Unexpectedly, Master Xiao looked at me twice, his expression shifting between surprise and uncertainty as he said, You must be the disciple of the Desert Blade, Yuan Hongxiu, with the given name Yuan Xiaodao. Phut, ha ha ha. Xiao Yu burst out laughing at once, openly mocking me without restraint. So you're actually called such a crude name. No wonder you never answered me whenever I asked your name along the way. I thought to myself, this is bad. I never expected the old master to recognize me. I planned to slip away quietly. Who would have thought that Master Xiao would slap Xiao Yu on the back and angrily scold, No respect for your elders, this is your future sister-in-law. But fate had other plans. My cold poison flared up, and I spat out a mouthful of blood before collapsing into unconsciousness. As I was fading out, I faintly heard Xiao Yu shouting in a panic, Someone save her, quick, save this wretched woman, she once saved my life. If she doesn't make it, I'll die along with her, you little brat. At least you have a conscience. So this playboy isn't my fiancé after all. Heaven still has some mercy on me. I later found out that Master Xiao could recognize me because my master had already informed him in advance and even sent him my portrait. It seems my master does care about me to some extent. This poison of mine is truly troublesome. It will take at least 2 years to completely eliminate. During this time, countless precious medicinal herbs were needed. I had no choice but to stay at the Xiao residence. Yuan Xiaodao, come on, let's go fly a kite with me. I was basking in the sun in the courtyard, eating dried fruit, too lazy to move. That bastard Xiao Yu insisted on dragging me out. I kicked him to the ground and glared at him. Show some respect. Call me sister-in-law. Xiao Yu lunged at me, knocking me off the lounge chair, and said angrily, "What kind of person is my elder brother? How could he ever fall for a rude woman like you? When he comes back, he'll definitely break off the engagement with you right away." He was pressing down on me, making my chest feel tight, so I casually tugged at my clothes. The Xiao family was perfect in every way, except for having too many rules. Wearing silk and satin felt so restrictive. Shoo, shoo, shoo. I impatiently patted Xiao Yu's face and lay on the hot stone slab, not wanting to move. The cold poison was acting up, and my whole body felt uncomfortable, for some reason. Xiao Yu actually blushed, then rolled over and ran off. He's a complete playboy through and through. Never seen him touch the 4 books and 5 classics, nor engage in music, chess, calligraphy, or painting. Every day, he just finds ways to sneak out and have fun. I heard your elder brother is going to enter officialdom in the future. Why are you so idle and aimless all day, with no ambition? I once asked him. Xiao Yu, however, scoffed lightly and said, "What does a woman like you? Wandering the martial world? No, one elder brother in the Xiao family is enough. I truly don't understand the intricate ways of these noble families. I just hope Master Xiao can quickly help me gather the last medicinal ingredient I need, so I can make my escape." Having been trapped in the Xiao family for a full 2 years, my blade was nearly rusting. After some time, old Master Xiao finally sent word. He called me to his study, handed me a letter, and said kindly, "Xiao Dao, the medicine you need is in Jizhou. An old friend of mine happens to have it. Take this letter and go find him, he'll give it to you. Also, take this silver with you." "Thank you, old Master Xiao." I was overjoyed. I then handed him the betrothal jade pendant and said sincerely, "The eldest young master of the Xiao family is destined for a high official position. I absolutely must not hinder his future. Old master, I am calling off this engagement. Let us part ways here. This jade pendant was the token of love between me and your master back in the day." Old Master Xiao suddenly sighed and said, "You keep it." I was dumbfounded when I heard this. So my master and the old master actually had such a past. Old Master Xiao continued, "Take a you with you when you leave. He happens to find staying at home all day boring anyway. I'm not a fool." With Xiao Yu, this little master, tagging along, would I ever have a peaceful day? I packed up and left overnight, but as soon as I rode out of the city on horseback, a voice called out from behind me, "Yuan Xiaodao, you wretched woman, don't even think about leaving me behind. My father told me to follow you to Jizhou to visit my uncle Qi." I turned my head and saw that it was actually Xiao Yu, chasing after me on horseback. I ignored him, but he followed me for 3 days and 2 nights. Xiao Yu had spent all the silver he brought and came to rummage through my bundle. As he rummaged, his expression changed. I leaned in to look and saw that there were actually 2 identity documents and 2 travel permits. I hadn't looked closely at these things before since they were buried underneath. Even as slow as I am, I realized that something had happened to the Xiao family. "Xiao Dao, I have to go back." Xiao Yu's hands were trembling, his eyes filled with fear. "I must go back." Seeing him so distraught, I sighed inwardly. If something really happened to the Xiao family, wouldn't going back now be like walking right into a trap? He was naturally striking in appearance, and his reputation for kindness and generosity had made him quite well known in the city. Half of Linen knew him. After all, I had spent 2 years with Xiao Yu and knew how stubborn he could be, so I had no choice but to help him come up with a plan. But by the time we returned, it was already too late. The Xiao family's residence was engulfed in flames, with shouts and killing cries everywhere. I stayed hidden with him in the shadows, only hearing the heart-wrenching screams coming from inside, but there was nothing we could do. Guards were stationed outside, and we couldn't slip in unnoticed. Xiao Yu's entire body was rigid, his eyes bloodshot. It wasn't until dawn that the Xiao family's door opened. One body after another was carried out and casually discarded on the street. My father, my mother, that's my 3rd sister, and my 2nd sister. Xiao Yu wanted to rush out, but I held him back tightly. "Xiao Yu, calm down. If you die too, who will avenge them?" I held him, closing my eyes to hold back the tears. Having roamed the martial world with my master for over a decade, I had long grown accustomed to life and death partings, but Xiao Yu hadn't. He was a young master raised in luxury. How could he bear the hatred of his family's annihilation? Xiao Yu wiped the tears from his face fiercely, his voice hoarse as he said, "Let's go, we're heading to Jizhou." On the way to Jizhou, we didn't dare to draw too much attention. We slept in rural inns at night and ate dry rations when we were hungry. During those 2 years at the Xiao residence, I knew just how extravagantly Xiao Yu lived. In his leisure time, he would scatter pearls in the courtyard for amusement, teasing the charming maids of the household. The chef had spent a long time preparing the dish, yet he only took a couple of bites before refusing to eat any more, complaining that it lacked novelty. Every night before bed, the maids had to warm and scent his bedding until it was soft and cozy. If there was even the slightest chill, he would become displeased. Now, Xiao Yu was silently drinking tea that cost only a penny for 3 bowls and chewing on tough, coarse grain cakes. He could indulge in a life of luxury and wealth. Yet he could also endure these days of hardship and wandering. I have to look at him with new respect. On our way, we passed through counties stricken by famine. While resting at a tea house, we saw commoners in tattered clothes waiting outside. A waiter from the tavern across the street carried out a bucket of slop, and 6 or 7 people rushed forward, pooling their money to buy that bucket of slop. They didn't even have time to take it home to share. They eagerly scrambled to scoop and eat it with spoons. On the way, there was another round of bickering over who ate more and who ate less. A frail woman cried out, "Save a bowl for me, just 1 bowl, I paid for it, and my child at home is starving," barely clinging to life. But the hurried passers-by paid her no mind. In times of famine, such suffering was all too common. "Xiao Dao, I want to help her." Xiao Yu pinched a piece of broken silver, speaking with difficulty. I sandwiched the meat in the flatbread, took a few bites, and shook my head, saying, "Even if you give her money, she won't be able to keep it." Xiao Yu's shoulders slumped slightly as he spoke, somewhat bewildered. "I was born and raised in Linen, and the farthest place I've ever been is the capital. My sister is the imperial consort, favored endlessly by the emperor. I thought the poorest person in the world was our lame stableman at home." He grew up in the prosperous region of Jiangnan, a land of fish and rice where even beggars have the privilege of being picky about their food. Xiao Yu once said something that was true: "Even the beggars in Jiangnan dress better than I do. It's not your fault." I patted Xiao Yu's shoulder and thought for a moment before saying, "When you were wealthy, you never bullied the common people. That is enough." "Enough? Is that really enough?" Xiao Yu rested his head on my shoulder, his body trembling slightly. After a long while, he lifted his head, his eyes completely red, and said with suppressed emotion, "Xiao Dao, I want to enter officialdom, for the wronged souls of the Xiao family, and for these displaced and suffering common people. This wish is a bit too grand." Looking at his thin face, I sighed inwardly and simply said, "All right." We quietly followed the woman to a dilapidated, filthy, and foul-smelling alley. After she went inside, I threw the bundle I was carrying on my shoulder over the wall. That was a pancake bought from the shop, with some meat hidden inside. When leaving, Xiao Yu asked me, "Xiao Dao, they will survive, right?" "No, they will soon die again, not just their family. That dirty alley will suffer from an epidemic in the coming summer. At that time, the authorities will send people to block off the entire street, wait until everyone inside has died, then set a fire to burn the bodies clean and prevent the spread of the disease." I looked at Xiao Yu and replied, "Yes, definitely." Xiao Yu breathed a sigh of relief, a glimmer of joy finally appearing in his lifeless eyes. "Once we reach Jizhou, everything will be fine. I'll go study, and you, Xiao Dao, can settle down in Jizhou." Xiao Yu said hopefully. "Uncle Qi watched me grow up. He will surely treat us well." But none of us expected that I would nearly lose half my life in Jizhou. The very man whom Xiao Yu described as the most loyal, Uncle Qi, had betrayed the Xiao family. If I hadn't been quick-witted and kept a backup plan, I would have been silently drugged without a trace. Xiao Yu and I tried to flee Jizhou overnight, but we were constantly pursued by soldiers. The Qi family's meager forces were no match for me. But who would have thought that my cold poison would flare up midway, and I ended up taking a hard blow to the back? "Xiao Yu, when I break through the encirclement later, You go, I said, enduring the pain. They want to capture you and take you to the capital. I'm just an outsider, they won't do anything to me. As the cold poison flared up, my entire body grew stiff and cold. Xiao Yu held me tightly, gritting his teeth as he said, "No, Xiao Dao, you're the only one I have left." He turned his head, looked at the people surrounding us, and said with a fierce tone, "Call Qi Zhongda here. I'm offering the Qi family a fortune beyond measure, let's see if he dares to take it." I don't know what Xiao Yu said to Qi Zhongda, but he agreed to let us go. While I was unconscious, I heard Qi Zhongda say, "Nephew, I remember when you were 3 years old, I visited your father in Linen. You were at that playful age and insisted I get on all fours to carry you around. Since this martial artist is badly injured, why don't you carry her on your back and crawl out of Jizhou? Time waits for no one. Once day breaks, you won't be able to leave even if you want to." Xiao Yu carried me on his back, then suddenly knelt on the ground with a thud. He crawled forward step by step, heading in the direction of the city gate. TSK, TSK, TSK. Who would have thought that the illustrious Xiao family, prominent for 3 generations, could fall to such a state? Qi Zhongda whipped Xiao Yu across the face and laughed. "The noble consort has been confined to the cold palace, and your brother died in the capital. The Xiao family now has only you, a good-for-nothing young master, truly. There is no one left to carry on the legacy." Xiao Yu said nothing. I lay on his back, tears streaming down continuously. When they reached the city gate, Qi Zhongda suddenly stopped him and teased, "Good nephew, the gate is too narrow. You'll have to crawl between my legs." I couldn't bear to listen any longer, so I triggered the cold poison and completely lost consciousness. "Xiao Dao, I'm heading to the academy." Half asleep, I felt someone tuck a warming pan into my bedding. Xiao Yu, seeing that I didn't respond, shook me awake and said unhappily, "Bring me lunch at noon." Did you hear me? I was so annoyed that I pulled the covers over my head and ignored him, hearing the door close. I found myself unable to fall back asleep. 2 years ago, Xiao Yu had completely changed his appearance, settled down in Bianzhou under a false name, and began studying at the official school. His temperament grew more composed day by day, no longer showing any trace of the young master of the Xiao family he once was. Yet the ways he tormented me only became more refined than before. He would either beg me to embroider sachets for him or force me to bring him meals. He claimed that among all his classmates at the official school who had wives, he was the one living the most pitiful life. I'm not his real wife. Why should I help him with all that? I got up and practiced a set of sword techniques. Seeing that it was almost time, I went out to buy some food and headed to the official academy. As soon as I arrived, I heard the sound of gongs and drums roaring from the academy. When I went inside, I saw people everywhere. Xiao Yu was surrounded by a crowd, wearing a gentle expression as he politely thanked everyone. "Miss Yuan, my lady requests your presence," a little maid said haughtily. I set down the food box and lazily followed her. Sitting in the most famous restaurant in town, I glanced at the wine on the table and couldn't help but twitch my nose. Pear Blossom Brew, that's the legendary Pear Blossom Brew that's worth a fortune. Since I got injured, Xiao Yu has strictly forbidden me from drinking. A martial artist who doesn't drink. Is that still a martial artist? You must have heard, Lady Yuan, that young Master Yu has just topped the metropolitan examination. Qin Miaoyu said with a smile as she poured me a cup of wine. Speaking softly, if young Master Yu goes to the capital and becomes the top scholar, he will achieve the rare feat of coming first in all 3 levels of the imperial examinations. In our dynasty, such geniuses are few and far between, with the support of a family behind him. Young Master Yu is bound to become a grand counselor in the future. I downed it in one gulp. The rich aroma filled my mouth. Excellent wine. It's a pity. But Yu Yin has had a hard life. Both his parents passed away. Alas, with such a background, how can he compete for power and influence with those young masters from prominent families in the capital? I sighed, looking at Qin Miaoyu with emotion. If only he had a wife like Miss Qin, with the Qin family's support. He would surely rise straight to the top. Qin Miaoyu's eyes lit up, and she actually bowed gracefully to me, her eyes brimming with tears. To be honest with you, Lady Yuan, I have long admired young Master Yu. If I were to marry into the Yu family, I would be willing to stand as an equal with you, sister. and serve young master Yu together. Sister, that would naturally be the best outcome, I quickly responded with tears in my voice. I, too, hope that my husband can achieve success and fame. After finishing a pot of wine, I stepped out the door, a bag of silver given by Qin Miaoyu tucked in my bosom, feeling thoroughly satisfied. The moment I stepped out, Xiao Yu, who had been waiting next door, dragged me inside. He grabbed my waist and said angrily, "Yuan Xiaodao, how dare you drink again? If your cold poison flares up and you pass out from the pain, don't come crying to me. A little drink lifts the spirits." I pulled out some silver from my pocket and grinned. Miss Qin is definitely more generous than Miss Wang and Miss Li. Xiao Yu, your trip to the capital is practically secured. With the travel funds from these three ladies, we won't have to endure hardships on the road. I've thought it over carefully. Among these three, Miss Qin is the most patient and seems to have some genuine feelings for you. Miss Wang has a bit of a fiery temper, but she's straightforward and simple-minded. As for Miss Li, her family is in business, so I'm afraid she won't be of much help to you. But still, I advise you to wait and see for now. I leaned closer to him and lowered my voice. Who knows, you might end up as the top scholar and get caught by the princess to be her husband. Once you become the imperial son-in-law, overthrowing the Sun family will be just around the corner. You've certainly thought it through for me. Xiao Yu glanced at me, pinched my cheek, and said with disdain, if I were to abandon my wife for the sake of career and wealth, I'd surely be impeached to death by the censors. Over the years, following Xiao Yu, he often told me about court affairs at night. So I've picked up some basic knowledge. I thought for a moment and said, no worries. Once you become the top scholar, I'll fake my death immediately so I won't tarnish your reputation. Promotion, wealth, and a dead wife, TSK. Xiao Yu, I'm really looking out for you, aren't I? Xiao Yu looked as if he couldn't be bothered to say more to me, dragging me along as we headed home. On the way, he suddenly asked me, did you buy the dishes in the food box from Weimanlu? Yes. I really showed you off in front of your classmates today, didn't I? The food was absolutely delicious. I immediately took credit and said expectantly, I handled this well, didn't I? Shouldn't you give me some pocket money? I didn't know when it had happened, but Xiao Yu had actually taken over managing the household finances. The money in my hands dwindles day by day, yet in his hands, it actually multiplies. The Xiao family has enjoyed wealth and prosperity for 3 generations, truly a household of luxury and abundance. Oh, that phrase was taught to me by Xiao Yu. Back in the day, the teachers who instructed Xiao Yu were all renowned scholars of our dynasty. At that time, he was idle and unambitious because the Xiao family was at the peak of its influence. Xiao Yu does have some skills. He excels at both making money and studying. Xiao Yu flicked my forehead twice in frustration and said helplessly, even if you want to slack off, at least pick a small eatery. Everyone in the entire official school has been to Weimanlu, and here I was, telling people early on that you'd be bringing me a meal. Oh, I actually hadn't thought of that. I felt a little guilty. Xiao Yu stared at me again and said, Yuan Xiaodao, with a brain like yours, how have you managed to survive in the martial world for so many years? I looked at Xiao Yu and prepared to take action. I never expected he was already prepared and took off running. On the way, we encountered Xiao Yu's classmate, who shouted from behind, sister-in-law, brother Xiao's status is different now. How can you chase and hit him on the street like this? What kind of behavior is this? What kind of behavior? Xiao Yu brought me to the capital 3 months early to prepare for the imperial examination. Over the past 2 years, he had made a name for himself in Bianzhou. Many people in the capital knew that there was a highly eloquent and unyielding Yu Yin in Bianzhou. After he arrived in the capital, he received many invitations to attend various literary gatherings. My first trip to the capital had me overjoyed. Xiao Yu was well off and gave me a generous amount of silver. I was dazzled by the capital's prosperity and, taking advantage of Xiao Yu's absence, disguised myself to visit a brothel and listen to music. After a few visits, I became quite familiar with Haitang, the pipa player. She was leaning against me, telling jokes to cheer me up, when a commotion suddenly erupted from downstairs. I leaned over to look and froze in shock. Standing downstairs was an ethereal figure. Like a celestial being untouched by the dust of the mortal world, He was dressed so lightly that faint whip marks could be seen faintly visible on his body. Everyone around was secretly watching him, but no one dared to disturb him. Stop staring. Haitang threw a handkerchief at my face and clicked her tongue. Him. 2 years ago, he was the #1 gentleman in the capital. Unfortunately, the Xiao family was convicted. This noble son fell from the clouds, covered in dust. Now, he's become that person's plaything in bed. He must have offended some noble again, who tortured him into this state and threw him into this pleasure quarter, trampling all over his pride. I felt dazed for a moment and instinctively touched the jade pendant in my pouch. He was actually Xiao Yu's older brother. Xiao Yu, my brother, is of noble character and refined tastes, excelling in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, a rare genius. Yuan Xiaodao, I'm warning you. Don't set your sights on my elder brother. He is destined to be a capable minister who will leave his name in history. From each, a rough-and-tumble wanderer like you will understand just by one look at my elder brother in the future. You're not worthy of him. I heard a melodious sound of a zither, and when I looked over, Xiao Yu had actually borrowed a zither and was sitting on the ground playing it. He looked indifferent, as if he didn't care about the surrounding gazes. I was intently listening to the music when suddenly a beardless man pointed at me. I was foolishly taken to a room, and immediately after, Xiao Yu walked in. Master Xiao, please, the man said sarcastically. I'd like to see how much pride you still have after being tainted by someone like this. I was forced to drink 2 glasses of wine with Xiao Yu, and the door slammed shut with a loud bang. There was actually something in the wine. I watched as an unnatural flush spread across Xiao Yu's pale face. He gritted his teeth tightly, resisting the effects of the drug. Come on, young Master Xiao. I grabbed his arm, pulled him onto the bed, glanced outside, and deliberately said in a rough tone, I'm really lucky today to get a taste of a noble young master like you. Xiao Yu's face was full of disgust as he tried to push me away. I grabbed the bed curtain and whispered close to his ear, I am your betrothed, Yuan Xiaodao. Look. This is the jade pendant from your Xiao family. I pressed my palm against his, transferring a chill into his body to help cool his feverish form. Xiao Yu regained some clarity of mind, his dazed eyes finally clearing up. Do you recognize me? I tore off the disguise on my face, revealing my true appearance. Xiao Yu stared at me for a long while before slowly saying, Of course I do. I breathed a sigh of relief and briefly explained the matter regarding Xiao Yu to him, advising, just endure it for now. Once Xiao Yu clears the Xiao family's name, he will surely secure your freedom. Xiao Yu's sweat dripped onto my cheek. He closed his eyes and did not respond. Miss Yuan, I may have to offend you. Xiao Yu's cold and restrained voice sounded beside my ear. I don't know why, but my face flushed a little, and I stammered, how are you going to offend me? After a little more than half an hour, Xiao Yu was taken away. I pretended to be unconscious on the couch and heard the beardless man snort, You're lucky you didn't touch him. After those people left, I immediately disguised myself, covered my face, and slipped out of the brothel. When I returned home, I saw Xiao Yu sitting in the courtyard waiting for me. I rushed over and hurriedly told him about what had happened today. But Xiao Yu stared intently at my neck, his expression darkening as he said, There's something on your collar. Come closer and let me see what it is. You still have the mood to care about my collar. I could only lean in closer and said urgently, Shouldn't we think of a way to save your eldest brother? How about I ask my master for help and have him sneak your brother out? Xiao Yu grabbed my collar and pulled it down, pointing at the bite mark on my collarbone with a cold, bitter smile. Yuan Xiaodao, you're something, really something. Are you so eager to fly away with my eldest brother and leave me behind? I was taken aback. Where did that come from? In that situation, when Xiao Yu bit me, I couldn't just slap him to death, could I? Xiao Yu's sudden anger was completely baffling. I wasn't one to be trifled with either. I glared at him and said, Xiao Yu, your elder brother and I were already betrothed, even if we get married in the future. There shouldn't be any problem with that, so why are you throwing such a fit? Xiao Yu was so angry his chest heaved, his face ashen. Seeing how furious he really was, I teased him. What, are you afraid that once your elder brother and I marry, we'll leave you behind to live on your own? Don't worry, until you get married. The 3 of us can just live together. Xiao Yu, his eyes bloodshot, Cursed. What the hell do you know? Yuan Xiaodao, what the hell do you know? And he calls himself a scholar, cursing so vulgarly. I ignored him, and Xiao Yu left. I was still hungry, so I went to the kitchen and grabbed a bite to eat. After eating, I remembered that Xiao Yu was about to take an exam. Staying angry with him like this wasn't really a solution. Hey, want some fruit? I banged on the door. A series of clattering noises came from inside. Who knows what that bastard was smashing? It's a rented place after all. Breaking anything would mean paying 3 times the price in compensation. I kicked the door open. Xiao Yu sat on the soft couch, his eyes red, exposing a pair of legs crisscrossed with scars. Back then, he carried me step by step out of the Jizhou city gate, his knees worn to the bone, the flesh torn and bones exposed. If I hadn't discovered it early and taken him for treatment, he might have ended up lame. Does it hurt again? I took out the medicated oil and walked over. Intending to help him apply it, Xiao Yu pretended to leave, but I held him down and said impatiently, "If you run again, I'll break your leg. Go ahead, it's not like it hasn't been broken before," Xiao Yu said through gritted teeth. "I waited in line for half an hour just to buy walnut cakes from Qibao Pavilion for you. And what do? You sneak off to meet with my elder brother behind my back. Listen, is there a single reliable word in what he said?" If that classmate who's always spouting classical phrases heard this, he'd be slapping his thigh again, exclaiming, "What a disgrace." As I applied the medicated oil for him, I glanced at the Qibao Pavilion box nearby and gestured with my chin. "Feed me." Xiao Yu pursed his lips, unwrapped the box, and fed me. I ate 2 pieces and told him about the situation at the time. Sighing, that was the situation back then. Xiao Yu had no choice but to do it. Your eldest brother suffered a lot. I noticed that he was often drugged, he's even built up a tolerance now. Xiao Yu fell silent for a moment, then said softly, "You don't understand my eldest brother. When it comes to things he doesn't want to do, no one can force him. If he didn't want to touch you, no one could." The rest of his words were mumbled, and I didn't catch them clearly. I lowered my voice and asked, "Given the current situation, what do you plan to do?" Xiao Yu snorted, "Anyway, I won't allow your master to steal my elder brother." I pinched him to make him speak seriously. "I've been in contact with my elder brother since Bianzhou," Xiao Yu finally said seriously. "Don't worry, my elder brother is capable of protecting himself." After a moment of silence, he added, "Some things are already prepared, we're just waiting for the right opportunity. When the time comes, the wronged souls of my Xiao family can finally rest in peace." I don't understand the affairs of the imperial court. In my early years, wandering the martial world with my master, I had little education. Once I've helped Xiao Yu achieve his revenge, it will be time for me to leave. Though the capital is splendid, it is not where I belong. One day, I will become a renowned swordsman in the martial world, just like my master. Xiao Yu noticed my silence and stared at me, saying, "Xiao Dao, promise me you won't fall for my elder brother." I wanted to scold him for always talking nonsense, but for some reason, Xiao Yu's figure appeared in my mind. He was lying on top of me, yet he tried his best not to touch me. Unable to bear the effects of the medicine, he still had to say, "I apologize. I have never seen someone so calm and self-possessed, nor have I ever met such an upright gentleman as him." Stop talking. Just stop. Xiao Yu took a deep breath, put on his shoes and socks, and left. The imperial examinations were approaching, and Xiao Yu rarely went out anymore, spending his days studying at home. Just seeing me, he has to glare at me and bump into me before he's satisfied. 2 more days passed, and I really couldn't stand his passive-aggressive attitude anymore. I rushed into his study, grabbed him by the collar, and angrily said, "Xiao Yu, if you have the guts, keep giving me the cold shoulder. If you don't, then make up with me. What kind of behavior is this?" Going on all day long, he prepared meals for me morning, noon, and night, and even bought me snacks and fruits. He even generously bought me 2 storybooks, but he just wouldn't talk to me. Xiao Yu sat on the chair and suddenly hugged me. "Then let's make up," Xiao Yu said in a muffled voice. "All this hugging and holding, what kind of behavior is this?" I curled my lips into a smile, patted his back, and took out some medicated oil for him. This was specially sent to me by my master. "It will be very beneficial for your knees," I said seriously. "You have your exams in 3 days, and you won't be able to leave for 9 days straight. I was worried your leg injury might flare up. Xiao Yu leaned back in his chair and looked at me, a faint smile finally appearing on his face. He pushed his luck and snorted. Your master is in Shu, and it takes at least 2 months to send anything from there. It seems you wrote to her a long time ago, Yuan Xiaodao. You still have me in your heart, isn't that obvious? Since I was young, I've been wandering the martial world with my master, and there aren't many people close to me around. I've been with Xiao Yu for a full 4 years. Although he's stubborn and sharp-tongued, he treats me very well. At first, it was to stay in the Xiao family to treat the cold poison. But later, when the entire Xiao family was wiped out, I was afraid he wouldn't be able to hold on. These past few days, while wandering around the city, I've heard people commenting on Xiao Yu, knowing that he is exceptionally talented and highly likely to win the top honors. I've already written back to my master. Once Xiao Yu achieves the top rank in the imperial examination, I will go to Shuzhong to find my master. Before long, it was time for the examination. The area in front of the government office was packed with people, and the candidates filed in one after another. Xiao Yu gave me a tight hug before entering with his bundle. This is outrageous, utterly outrageous. His classmate, standing nearby, flushed red with anger and stamped his feet in frustration. Go on, I said, patting Xiao Yu and smiling at him. I'll wait for you to come back. Xiao Yu squeezed my hand firmly and strode toward the government office. So many people, yet they couldn't conceal his presence. For this day, he had prepared for far too long. The moment he appeared, many students turned their eyes toward him. Xiao Yu, he was born to be the center of attention. After he left, I pinched the silver coins in my purse and decided to go find Haitang for some drinks and fun. Who would have thought that after walking 2 streets, the little tail following me still hadn't dropped off? I rolled my eyes, thinking I hadn't made any enemies in the capital. I deliberately took a dark alley and climbed onto the wall. When I turned the corner, that little tail turned around, and seeing no one there, started sobbing. I actually lost them. Now what? Who's going to save the young master? I jumped down from the wall, stood behind him, and asked in a low voice, who is your young master? The little tail cried even harder and quickly asked me, are you young master Yuan? My young master is Xiao Yu. Please, I beg you, go save him. He's been harmed by Princess Yongping and can't go on living. A while ago, Haitang had told me quite a bit about Xiao Yu. The Xiao family was embroiled in a massacre, and by all rights, Xiao Yu should have been sentenced to death. However, influential civil officials came forward one after another to plead for leniency on his behalf. For one reason only, they valued talent. Xiao Yu achieved fame at a young age, earning the top 3 honors in the imperial examinations at just 14 years old. However, he was still too young at that time to be granted an official position. Xiao Yu traveled abroad to study, visiting various academies, and his profound knowledge and talent were widely admired. Yet, fate was envious of his brilliance. He should have soared to great heights, entering the imperial cabinet and becoming a chancellor. But instead, he ended up as a prisoner. Princess Yongping took a fancy to him and used every means to torment Xiao Yu, yet she could not make him yield. Fortunately, Xiao Yu gained the favor of the crown prince. Though he was a convicted criminal, with the crown prince's protection, he managed to barely survive. Princess Yongping was the crown prince's younger sister. Known for her willfulness and arrogance, even though she was already married, she still humiliated Xiao Yu. As long as Princess Yongping did not go too far, the crown prince turned a blind eye. But this time, in her fury, Princess Yongping actually broke one of Xiao Yu's arms. The crown prince, realizing the situation had escalated, sent Xiao Yu to a manor in the outskirts of the capital to lay low. Princess Yongping secretly instructed the servants at the manor to deliberately humiliate and mistreat Xiao Yu. Usually, the young master would endure Princess Yongping's behavior, but this time, over some trivial items, he ended up provoking her anger. Little Tail cried until his eyes were red and swollen. The young master has a way of insulting people without using a single vulgar word, and he managed to infuriate the princess so much that she vomited blood. Before he left, he told me that if anything happened to him, I should come to you, young Master Yuan, for help. I pinched my palm to calm myself down. After investigating the manor in the outskirts of the capital, I managed to sneak in and become a servant girl. Coincidentally, I was assigned to serve Xiao Yu. He's like a revered Buddha. If he dies on our watch, we'll be in trouble. Let the new girl handle it. She looks clumsy and dull-witted, perfect to be a scapegoat. I overheard those people discussing in secret and learned that Xiao Yu was already so ill that he couldn't even take medicine. Entering a dilapidated small courtyard, I saw Xiao Yu actually sitting under a tree, carefully observing the flowers and plants on the ground. He had lost so much weight, looking extremely haggard from illness, and was coughing incessantly. Even though he was in dire straits, he still maintained a clean and tidy appearance. Xiao Yu turned his head and saw me, carefully examining my eyes before letting out a soft laugh. With that laugh, he started coughing again. I had disguised myself, yet he still recognized me. Looking at his arm hanging limply by his side, I gently massaged it and whispered, "Young Master Xiao, if this arm isn't treated soon, it'll be useless. Then I'll trouble you, Miss Yuan," he said gently and politely. I broke his arm to reset the bone, and he didn't make a sound, only cold sweat streaming down his forehead. As soon as Xiao Yu took the medicine sent from outside, he vomited. He said somewhat apologetically, "I'm sorry, Miss Yuan, for letting you witness such unpleasant matters." I didn't say anything and tasted the medicine. Phut, cough cough, I spat it out too. The medicine was so bitter that my face turned yellow. This was clearly an intentional attempt to bully Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu was already sick, with a weak stomach and frail body. How could he possibly swallow such bitter medicine? I have a basic understanding of pharmacology. If it's convenient for you, Miss Yuan, could you bring me some medicine from outside? Xiao Yu said politely. Of course it's convenient for me. I climbed over the wall at night to buy medicine for him, and after 5 days of preparing special meals for him, Xiao Yu's condition finally began to improve. Let's see, Xiao Yu has already been taking the exam for 5 days. I helped Xiao Yu walk toward the study and casually remarked, "It rained yesterday, I wonder if his legs are hurting." Xiao Yu turned to look at me and said softly, "Yu has always been proud and aloof since childhood, yet he carried you out of Ji Prefecture. I'm afraid you hold a very important place in his heart." I thought for a moment and said, "At that time, anyone by his side would have been a lifeline. The fall was too hard, having witnessed the extermination of the entire Xiao family. Xiao Yu would talk nonsense in his dreams every night. It just so happened that I was by his side. He desperately needed to hold on to someone to keep himself going. I was helping Xiao Yu tidy up the study when I clumsily knocked over a wooden box. The contents spilled out, and I hurried to pick them up. A faded red hair ribbon, a palm-sized knife, and a well-worn storybook with curled edges. The more I looked at those items, the more familiar they seemed. Seeing the letter placed beneath the wooden box, I immediately recognized my master's terrible handwriting. Xiao Yu also stood up to help me tidy up, saying naturally, "Ever since you were 5, I've received some small trinkets from your master every year, along with letters and your portraits." I asked curiously, "Why would my master write to you?" After tidying up, Xiao Yu simply sat down with me and began sharing the stories behind those little trinkets. He looked at my slightly embarrassed expression and laughed again, saying, "When I was very young, my father warned me that I would one day marry a girl named Yuan Xiaodao. Every year, he would repeatedly remind me not to be swayed by other girls outside, to keep myself pure, and to wait for you to grow up. Later, probably worried that since we had never met, I might not treat you well even if we married. My father forced your master to occasionally send me some of your belongings and write to me about interesting stories involving you." I flipped through those letters and shouted in frustration, "I didn't pull the little monk's pants down. Why didn't my master believe me? She even wrote about it to you, when I was 6 years old." I was extremely curious about the differences between men and women. It so happened that my master and I were staying at a temple, and I became very close with a young monk there. We were sparring at the time, and his pants accidentally fell down. My master saw it and, laughing, went around telling everyone that I had pulled down the young monk's pants and that I would have to take responsibility for him in the future. Xiao Yu listened to my explanation and coughed lightly, saying, "Back then, I was quite worried you'd have to take responsibility for that young monk. What kind of nonsense is this?" I didn't know how to respond to that, so I turned my attention to the other items. I used to read this storybook every night before bed, I said angrily. Then one day it disappeared, and I was so worried. My master even joked that I read it so much. The book grew legs and ran away. So it turns out she sent it to you. Xiao Yu nodded in admiration and said, "This set of the 3 heroes and 5 gallants is exceptionally well written. I later bought the remaining volumes for you. I wonder if you received them." I exclaimed in surprise. "So you really did buy it? I thought my master was tricking me again." Sigh, my master is always full of lies. Back then, I was still young. How could I possibly believe she had arranged a noble young master as my fiancé? I picked up the small knife again and snorted. This knife is really precious. I saved up for a long time to buy it, and it cost me a full half-tael of silver. After I lost it, I was so angry that I ate candied hawthorn for 3 days straight and ended up with a toothache. After looking through all the items, I said helplessly, "This is so unfair. Why did my master give all my treasures to you? Why didn't your father send your treasures for me to see?" Xiao Yu smiled at me and actually brought out a large box. He said slowly, "After I turned 10, every time I received something from you, I would put one of my favorite things from that time into the box. There's also a letter I wrote to you and a portrait of me from that year. But since you and your master were always on the move, I had no way to send them to you. I've kept these things with me all along, thinking that if I ever got to see you, I'd show them to you." Meeting Xiao Yu's gentle gaze, my heart raced uncontrollably, and I dug my nails hard into my palm. Just then, the tearful little follower came in and, seeing the pile of things on the table, exclaimed in shock, "Young master, why have you taken these things out again? If Princess Yongping finds out, she'll torment you again. Your fiancé has long been out of touch. Why do you still hold her in your heart? Even risking your life for these old mementos?" He said anxiously again, "I'll go guard the door. You quickly pack up and hide these things. Don't let anything go missing again, or you'll be too upset to sleep." I sat in the chair, my mind in a daze. So Xiao Yu had offended Princess Yongping over some old belongings, and it turned out they were related to me. Once the door closed, the room fell silent. Xiao Yu looked at me as if I were facing a great enemy and smiled helplessly. "Did I scare you?" "Not really." I blushed and managed to squeeze out a sentence. I just didn't expect that. I originally thought this engagement matter was just my master fooling around. It turns out that in all those years I couldn't see, there really was someone who cherished and valued everything about me so deeply. I scratched my head, feeling rather embarrassed. After all, I had always lived a carefree and unrestrained life, and no one had ever treated me with such delicacy before. Xiao Yu lightly tapped the table with his finger before speaking slowly. "Miss Yuan, as you can see, I truly have a sincere heart for you. Although Princess Yongping has tormented me for a long time, I have never submitted to her and remain pure. If Miss Yuan also has feelings for you, after you avenges his family, would you be willing to marry you and spend the rest of your life together?" Xiao Yu's confession came too suddenly, and I was completely unprepared. I ended up saying a few words to brush him off. He said there was no need to rush to respond to him, and I also breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, the day came when Xiao Yu finished his exams. He had lost a whole lot of weight, and when he came out, he looked like a pickled vegetable that had been soaked and bloated. Xiao Yu took a bath, drank some hot soup, and slept for 2 full days before he finally recovered. On the 3rd day, when the results were posted, that utterly improper classmate came to find him early in the morning. Xiao Yu leisurely finished his breakfast before heading out. Seeing his demeanor, I knew Xiao Yu had it all figured out in his heart. When we arrived at the place where the results were posted, it was packed with a sea of people. "You stay here, I'll go take a look." I was afraid the crowd would be too much and he might get jostled, especially since his leg wasn't in good condition to begin with. I slipped through the crowd like a swimming dragon to wait for the results. Before long, officials came out to post the list. First in the provincial examination, Bianzhou Yuyin. Before I could take a closer look, someone shouted it out. "Bianzhou's Yuyin has indeed made it to the top rank." The voice spread out like waves. I took another look for what a disgrace, and Wang Quan's name was on the list. He passed too. I rushed out but was stopped by Wang Quan. He hurriedly asked me, "Lady Yuan, how am I?" "You've passed." I smiled at him. Wang Quan covered his face and took a few deep breaths. When he revealed his face again, his eyes were red, and he whispered, "I've lived up to my mother's expectations." Wang Quan's mother had a hard time supporting his studies, and he had finally made it through. Yu Yin left a message for you to wait for him at home. Wang Quan hesitated for a moment before saying to me softly, "Lady Yuan, it was the daughter of Duke Lin's family who invited Yu Yin. Forgive me for speaking out of turn, but since coming to the capital, Yu Yin has actually had frequent interactions with the Duke's daughter." As he said this, his face flushed with shame. I knew Wang Quan was not a gossipy person. He must have mustered all his courage to say these words. Wang Quan was grateful for the kindness I showed by taking care of his mother from time to time during those 2 years in Bianzhou. "I understand," I said with a smile, cupping my hands in salute. "I wish you the best of luck in the palace examination." Wang Quan also laughed, his face turning even redder. Not long after I returned, Xiao Yu came back. The neighbors and his old friends and classmates all came to the house to offer their congratulations. Fortunately, Xiao Yu had prepared red envelopes and wedding candies in advance. After everyone had left, I pulled him aside and whispered, "Does Miss Lin know your identity?" Lin Jingyi, the legitimate daughter of Duke Lin, is actually Xiao Yu's fiancé. I've known about this for a long time. Back when the Xiao family was still prosperous, Xiao Yu used to mock me. My fiancé Lin Jingyi is a top-tier noble lady in the capital, both talented and beautiful, not like you, a little rascal, barely literate. All you know is how to beat me up. He said this with quite a bit of pride. I thought this marriage arrangement was over, but it turns out they still have contact. Don't misunderstand, Xiao Yu explained to me. I'm just exchanging some messages with the Duke through Miss Lin. Seeing his calm expression, I quietly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed Miss Lin would not break off the engagement or look down on Xiao Yu just because the Xiao family had fallen into misfortune. Such a woman was naturally excellent. I just didn't expect to meet this young lady from the Duke's residence so soon. While Xiao Yu went to take the palace examination, I was invited to the Duke's residence by Lin Jingyi. She had a delicate and refined beauty, with an indescribable charm about her. As soon as she saw me, she smiled and said, "Just as I imagined, Miss Yuan has a heroic and spirited demeanor, so refreshing to look at." I felt a bit embarrassed by her compliment. Lin Jingyi linked arms with me as we strolled through the garden, telling me stories about her and Xiao Yu from their childhood along the way. Back then, the imperial consort felt lonely in the capital. Xiao Yu often lived in the capital as a child, and I frequently entered the palace to serve the Empress Dowager, so we became familiar with each other over time. Lin Jingyi said with a laugh, "He used to be an absolute little ruffian. I often wondered what kind of chaotic life I'd have if I married him someday." At this point, even the slowest among us would have sensed something. Xiao Yu and I pretended to be husband and wife out of necessity, I explained. Lin Jingyi looked at me, a trace of sorrow flickering in her eyes. After a moment of silence, she said, "Miss Yuan, do you know why Xiao Yu came to see me that day?" I looked at her. She continued, "Xiao Yu came to break off our engagement. Even if the Xiao family's name is cleared in the future and their honor restored, he still insists on ending the betrothal. He said that the one he truly loves is you." Lin Jingyi wiped the tears from the corner of her eye, speaking with delicate grace. "We were betrothed when we were 8. Whenever my friends teased me, they would call me Lady Xiao. On the day I heard about the Xiao family's misfortune, I was so distraught that I fainted. I wanted to rush into the palace and beg the Empress Dowager to spare Xiao Yu. My father locked me up at home, and it wasn't until 2 years later that he dared to tell me that Xiao Yu was still alive." As she spoke, her weeping grew even more intense. Silently, I handed her a handkerchief. Lin Jingyi thanked me, composed herself a little, and continued, "I did not agree to his breaking off the engagement. His path is still long. Xiao Yu has endured great hardship, but his heart holds vast ambitions and grand aspirations. In the future, he is sure to become a capable minister, perhaps even a grand counselor. His wife must be someone who can manage his household and offer him wise counsel. If he breaks off our engagement to marry you, my father would be the first to refuse him support, and most of the powerful nobles in the capital would not lend him their aid." After hearing all this, I thought for a moment and said, "Don't laugh at me, Miss Lin, but I once had a brief fondness for Xiao Yu. However, after learning he had a fiancé, I extinguished those feelings." Xiao Yu may appear calm and composed on the surface, but deep down, he carries great scars. If the two of you are united in marriage someday, I hope you will cherish him with compassion. The truth is, he is afraid of the dark and cannot bear pain." Lin Jingyi bowed gracefully to me, her eyes brimming with tears. A major incident has occurred in the palace. After the palace examination, Xiao Yu was appointed as the top scholar by imperial decree, but he immediately revealed his true identity. He accused the emperor's uncle-in-law, Sun Liansheng, of plotting a rebellion, yet this grave crime was pinned on the Xiao family. As a result, the entire Xiao family was executed, and consort Xiao was confined to the cold palace. This matter involves the empress, the crown prince, and the entire family of the emperor's uncle-in-law, shocking the entire court. The emperor was furious and ordered a joint investigation by the three judicial bodies to thoroughly examine the matter. Xiao Yu was placed under house arrest within the palace. Unexpectedly, news spread from the palace that the crown prince was to be deposed. Unable to contain his anxiety, on the third day after the incident, the crown prince actually led troops to storm the palace. By the time this matter reached my ears, I was already galloping on horseback alongside Xiao Yu. Charging into the palace, clad in silver armor, Xiao Yu whispered to me, "I was afraid something might happen to you, so I brought you along." Gritting my teeth, I said, "He will be absolutely fine." Xiao Yu had endured humiliation and concealed himself by the crown prince's side for years, all for this fatal strike. Duke Lin led 5,000 soldiers into battle against the rebels. Determined to rescue the emperor, I moved faster than the others, charging into the palace according to the location Xiao Yu had told me. When I arrived at Chonghua Hall, I saw Xiao Yu covered in blood, leaning against a pillar. "Xiao Yu." I rushed over and swung my blade at the rebel soldier advancing toward him. Xiao Yu looked up at me and slumped to the ground, exhausted. I checked him over and saw only one wound on his arm. Letting out a sigh of relief, "Yuan Xiaodao." Xiao Yu leaned on my shoulder and let out a long breath. "Do you realize that if the crown prince wins now, we'll both die together?" "We won't die." I stripped the armor off a rebel soldier and put it on myself, then asked for the crown prince's location and walked off with my blade in hand. Lin Jingyi was not entirely wrong. Xiao Yu might indeed need a wife of noble birth, well versed in etiquette, but on the path of escape, it was I who protected him with a single blade. When the rebels rose in chaos, with just one blade, I could slay 1,000 and take the crown prince's head. My master was the desert blade master Yuan Hongxiu, who once overturned a den of mountain bandits that kidnapped women and children, armed with only a blade and a horse. By the time I was 10, I could already take down a notorious flower thief with my own hands. We are people of the Jianghu. Though we may lack literary refinement, we hold justice in our hearts. In the tales, the great heroes who save the world and its people often wield swords, but in truth, when it comes to weapons for killing, the blade is far more practical. The crown prince has taken control of the Mingde Hall and is holding the emperor hostage. I watched the guards at the entrance from a distance and thought to myself, "Master, today I am going to make you proud." I leaned against the cold wall, caressing my blade, regulating my breathing. I first held a blade at the age of 5, and it has been 13 years since then. "Master, why did you learn the sword?" "To cut down all the injustices in the world." "Master, what is the name of the sword technique we practice?" 3,000 miles. What a strange name. I flicked the blade, producing a clear, resonant clang. My master once said that if I dedicated myself to practicing the blade, I would surely become one of the top 3 swordsmen in the martial world. Today, I will see for myself where my limits lie. Having traveled 3,000 miles in battle, a single sword can stand against 1,000,000 troops. I gripped my blade and stepped forward. "Master, I will never bring shame upon us, the warriors of the martial world." When I charged into the Hall of Bright Virtue, all I saw were pairs of terrified eyes. Blood stained my eyes, the knife in my hand radiating heat. I pressed the blade against the crown prince's neck and declared loudly to the emperor, "A nameless blade from the martial world, summoned by Lord Xiao Yu to rescue your majesty." I held the crown prince firmly, pushing him outside the hall, and amplified my voice with inner energy. "Surrender now. The crown prince has committed treason, a crime beyond forgiveness, and has been captured by Lord Xiao Yu. At that time, I had fought fiercely against thousands of rebel soldiers. After Xiao Yu and Xiao Yu arrived, I collapsed from exhaustion and lost consciousness. When I woke up again, it was already 10 days later. My whole body felt as if it had been crushed by a giant boulder, the pain unbearable. You foolish girl. My master slapped me on the forehead, furious. How impressive, using your own life to earn merits for others. When I saw my master, I burst into tears, clinging to her without saying a word. The master frowned and said with relief, "It's fortunate that I happened to be in the capital, otherwise, not even the greatest immortal could have saved you." I was well aware of the danger that day. I had overexerted my energy, and the slightest misstep could have caused all my meridians to shatter, leading to death. My master told me about the events that had occurred during this time. The Empress and Imperial Uncle's son were both imprisoned in the dungeon, and the Crown Prince had been deposed. The Xiao family's wrongful conviction was overturned, and Consort Xiao was released from the cold palace. Master went out to prepare medicine for me, and Xiao Yu walked in. As soon as he entered, he embraced me. I could tell from his expression that something was troubling him. What happened? I asked with a furrowed brow. Hasn't the Xiao family already been exonerated? Xiao Yu suppressed his emotions, pressing his forehead firmly against my shoulder, his voice hoarse as he said, "Xiao Dao, I've only just realized that the Xiao family is nothing but a pawn in the Emperor's game. To bring down the Empress and Imperial Uncle's son, he sacrificed the Xiao family, sending us to the executioner's block. The Emperor has been scheming for years, waiting for this day when the Xiao family would step forward and force the Crown Prince into rebellion. This is the truth I've been desperately searching for. My aunt told me that both thunder and rain are the grace of the sovereign, but her heart is clearly dead. Back in the day, she was renowned throughout the capital, her smile captivating the entire city. Now, her eyes are as still as death. My brother, who was meant to soar high, sacrificed himself, lurking in the Crown Prince's residence, enduring humiliation from that Princess Yongping. Now all the officials in the court know about the shame he suffered, and he can never return to the court. Xiao Yu's eyes were bloodshot, his fists clenched in fury as he raged. Is an emperor like this worth my loyalty? Is a court like this worth all our sleepless nights of study and dedication to uphold? Xiao Yu. I slapped the back of his hand hard, trying to calm him down. I looked into his eyes and said, "Have you forgotten? On the way to Jizhou, you once said you would enter the government to help the displaced people, become a capable minister in a well-governed world and bring peace for a generation. You can definitely do it. Don't let temporary hatred cloud your heart. Bring peace for a generation." Xiao Yu murmured to himself. I thought for a moment and said to him, "Xiao Yu, I've never told you about my background because I didn't think there was much to say. When the nation rises or falls, it's always the common people who suffer, and I'm no different. I was born into a farming family in Yuzhou. Just as a 3-year drought struck, corrupt officials did nothing but increase taxes, making life unbearable for the people, so much so that they resorted to exchanging children to eat. As I recalled those long-faded memories, I unconsciously curled my fingers. I have an older brother above me and a younger sister below me. Although my family was poor, my parents did their utmost to treat me well. I rubbed my face before continuing. During the 3-year great drought, not a single grain was harvested, and many people starved to death. One night, our neighbor, driven mad by hunger, came to discuss with my parents about exchanging children. I was the one who was exchanged. Xiao Yu's expression gradually grew solemn as he looked at me, his eyes filled with pain and pity. I was 5 years old that year. I killed someone and fled, meeting my master along the way. She saw that I had excellent innate talent, took me as her disciple, and taught me the way of the blade. I finished telling these events in one breath and said to Xiao Yu, "Blade masters like us in the martial world can only save one person, one family. But a brilliant scholar like you, who achieved the top 3 honors in the imperial examinations, can save a county, a city, or even an entire province once you become an official. Xiao Yu, I hope you never abandon your soaring ambitions and become a virtuous official remembered throughout history." Alright. It took Xiao Yu a long while to speak. After a while, he looked at me and asked, "I heard from your master that you're leaving." I met his gaze. choked up, unable to speak, and could only nod. Xiao Yu let out a long sigh and asked me again, I heard from Lin Jingyi that you used to like me. When was that? I pinched my ear and slowly said, it was my first year at the Xiao family. You used to take me out to play all the time. One night, we went out to eat wontons, and it started raining on the way. We met an old lady selling wontons who was packing up her stall, and she had twisted her ankle and fallen into the mud. You went over, carried her on your back to the clinic, and I pushed the wonton cart behind you, walking like that all the way. I don't know why, but I started to like you a little. Not long after, I heard you say you had a fiancé in the capital, so I never entertained those feelings again. So early. Xiao Yu tilted his head back, closed his eyes tightly, and said, back then, I was just a frivolous young master who knew nothing of the world. I envied my brother for having a wife like you, skilled with the blade, free-spirited and unrestrained. To compete with him, I often brought up Lin Jingyi's name. A few more days passed, and once I had mostly recovered, my master suggested that I leave with her. I was to go with her to Shaolin, where the Shaolin inner cultivation method would gently nourish my meridians to prevent any lasting complications. The sooner, the better. Before leaving, Xiao Yu. And I sat in the courtyard drinking. No one spoke a word. Under the bright moon, we finished a pot of wine. When the moon reached its zenith, my master was waiting outside with the horse. Take care. I set down my wine cup, picked up my blade and bundle, and gave the two of them a firm hug. Once we part, the journey ahead is long and the world vast, making it hard to meet again. I heard Xiao Yu's cries, Yuan Xiaodao, remember to come back to the capital to see me. I dared not look back. Afraid he would see my tear-reddened eyes, I mounted my horse, and under the cover of night, I rode off swiftly with my master. Xiao Yu once asked me why I didn't wait until daybreak to leave, to take it more leisurely. I said, those who walk the martial path never wait for time. Xiao Yu said, well said. Martial artist Yuan Xiaodao, I hope that when I hear your name again someday, you will already be a renowned and righteous blade master known throughout the land. I say, when I become famous throughout the land, I hope you will already be a great official praised by all the people. With this, we bid farewell. The martial world is vast with treacherous paths, and the imperial court is full of unpredictable storms. Xiao Yu and I each have our own paths to walk. The first time I met Yuan Xiaodao, I was just 14 years old, still a spoiled young master. I had been taken hostage, and I was sitting in the main hall with the bandits. People from the martial world came and went, but no one dared to interfere. At that moment, I thought my life was truly over. Then Yuan Xiaodao walked in. She looked travel-worn, dressed in a faded blue robe, carrying a large blade on her back. I recognized her the moment she walked in. She was my eldest brother's fiancée, Yuan Xiaodao. I never expected we would meet under such circumstances. The jade pendant hanging from her waist was the token our Xiao family passed down to the eldest son's wife. I had known of Yuan Xiaodao since I was very young. My eldest brother would often receive strange little trinkets, along with a messily written letter and a barely passable portrait. Brother, are you really going to marry someone from the martial world? I said, looking at the portrait on the table. Yuan Xiaodao is quite good-looking, and her eyes are so bright, but she's still a martial artist. Just look at her master's terrible handwriting. It's clear she probably has no literary talent either. My elder brother, however, touched the red string tied around his wrist and smiled, saying, you're still young and don't understand how lucky I am to have a fiancé like Yuan Xiaodao, who is straightforward, carefree, and bright. At that time, I didn't take it seriously and thought my brother was exaggerating. Who would have thought that I would actually meet Yuan Xiaodao? She quietly broke into the room where I was trapped at night, trying to save me. Yuan Xiaodao was already a seasoned hand in the Jianghu. She shouldn't have slipped up, but with a burden like me tagging along, I held her back. Though she managed to kill the two bandits who had kidnapped me, she accidentally got poisoned and had no choice but to return home with me. On the way back, the cold poison flared up several times, but she gritted her teeth and pushed through. At night, we stayed in a dilapidated temple. Yuan Xiaodao lit a fire, spread the charcoal ashes on the ground, wrapped himself in a cloak, and slept on the ashes. Xiao Yu, I'll give you the knife. You keep watch. Yuan Xiaodao said, handing me the heavy knife before falling asleep instantly. At that moment, in the middle of the wilderness, I couldn't help but feel the absurdity of it all. How could someone as noble and pure-hearted as my elder brother have a fiancé who sleeps on the ground like this? Yuan Xiaodao escorted me to the Xiao family, and due to the cold poison, I had no choice but to stay. For some reason, I didn't write to inform my elder brother about Yuan Xiaodao's presence at the Xiao family. After washing up, she changed out of her dirty, tattered clothes. Yuan Xiaodao was wearing a light green pleated floral skirt, her hair styled in a flowing cloud bun, with 2 jade pendants dangling from her ears. She stood under the sun, lazily flicking the pebbles in her hand. Riddling the wooden post in front of her with holes, from a distance, I watched her graceful figure and felt my face inexplicably grow warm. At that time, I was already engaged to Lin Jingyi, back in the capital. Whenever I spoke with Lin Jingyi, there was always some distance between us, and she never met with me alone. Yuan Xiaodao didn't have the refined manners of a well-bred lady. If I upset her, she would often kick me to the ground. When she was displeased with me, she would sit on the roof and pelt me with stones, making me howl all over the courtyard. We would sneak over the wall at night to go out and have fun. Yuan Xiaodao even had a fondness for drinking in pleasure houses. When my father found out about this, he was furious and scolded me. No respect for your elders. She is going to be your sister-in-law someday. And here you are, always taking Xiaodao out to fool around. When your elder brother returns, just wait for him to break your dog legs. I don't want her to be my sister-in-law. I didn't know why at the time, but I felt uncomfortable inside. Later, I would always mention to Yuan Xiaodao that I had a fiancé in the capital who was of noble birth, talented, and beautiful. Yuan Xiaodao would just glance at me indifferently and then lower her head to wipe her blade. It was only much later that I realized she had actually liked me a little back then. It's just that the timing of our meeting was all wrong. She was my brother's fiancé, and I was already betrothed to someone else. The night the Xiao family was wiped out, Yuan Xiaodao took me to Jizhou. It was on that journey that I truly learned what it meant to live in the martial world, braving the wind and dew, traveling by starlight, covered in the dust of the road. When encountering unreasonable people in the martial world, the only way to reason with them is with the blade in your hand. I have a youthful face and was teased. Yuan Xiaodao walked over without a word, broke the big man's arm with the back of his blade, and knocked out all his teeth. Once we stepped out, she said, in the Jianghu, it's all about having a tough fist. If I hadn't shown my strength back then, that man would have dared to climb into your room and humiliate you tonight. On the journey to Jizhou over those few months, I saw a completely different Yuan Xiaodao. She was worldly wise, sometimes slick and sophisticated, yet at other times soft-hearted and compassionate. She could sleep on the bare ground, or she could go to the lake to pick a lotus flower, placing its petals in a sachet to carry a touch of fragrance. She never complains about the hardships of life, only perseveres and moves forward. I dreamed of a storm of blood in the night and woke to see Yuan Xiaodao sitting by my bed, watching over me. She lay down beside me, took my hand, and said, "Sleep. I will keep your nightmares at bay." Yuan Xiaodao's palm had a thin layer of callus. As I touched that thin callus, I fell into a dreamless sleep. That betrayal in Jizhou completely shattered my spine. I carried Yuan Xiaodao step by step out of the Jizhou city gate, feeling her tears fall on my neck. Yuan Xiaodao said, "If there is a tomorrow, I will surely kill him with my own hands to avenge your humiliation." I said to myself, Qi Zhongde would not live much longer. He was too greedy, thinking he could take over the Xiao family's businesses, unaware that while the mantis stalks the cicada, the oriole follows behind. As the wealthiest family in Jiangnan, the Xiao family has many eyes watching them. What is a mere Qi Zhongde? We left Jizhou, and Yuan Xiaodao gave me a complete makeover. At night, I need to soak in the bathtub for 2 hours to alter my bone structure. It's both painful and itchy. I can hardly bear it. Yuan Xiaodao sat beside me, casually telling me some interesting stories from the martial world. That year, I took on a mission to rescue a woman as beautiful as a flower. She thought I was a man and wanted to marry me. Yuan Xiaodao spun a wild tale to deceive me. Alas, I later told her I was a woman. She was overjoyed, saying she had thought I was a man and was just making do. Who would have guessed that I happened to be a woman? And it turned out she actually preferred women, Yuan Xiaodao also said. A noble young master like you, if you fall into the hands of the female disciples of the Enuo sect, they would support you all by themselves with just 3 or 5 disciples. You'd live quite happily. But that happy life doesn't last long. Once you're drained dry, it's game over. I was dumbfounded. Though I was also a reckless and indulgent young master, I had never heard of such unorthodox things. I pressed her for more details. Drained.
Scheme against the Empress and the Sun family. I walked out of the palace, chilled to the bone. My elder brother was waiting outside and asked me, "Are you disheartened?" I returned home in a daze, only to find that Xiao Dao had already woken up. She always becomes a guiding light for me in my darkest moments. But I know she won't stay. Yuan Xiao Dao said goodbye to me, but not to my elder brother. Some words she didn't need to say, I already understood. My eldest brother stayed in the capital for a year, teaching me how to be an official, a subject, and a subordinate. He left the capital on a rainy night, and I knew he was going to find Yuan Xiaodao. I sat in the courtyard, listening to the sound of rain all night, feeling nothing but loneliness. When I was a child, I always envied my eldest brother for being able to study and enter officialdom, becoming the greatly admired talented scholar. Back then, my eldest brother patted my head and said, I'm glad you don't yet understand the loneliness and hardship of this path. Now, I understand. The prodigal and dissolute son, now stand in the imperial court, while my brother, a man of such renown, has left the capital forever. The unpredictability of fate always makes one laugh. Yuan Xiaodao, remember to come back and see me. I'm afraid if I wait too long, I'll forget my original intention of becoming an official. When I was 10 years old, I learned that my father had arranged a marriage for me. At that time, I already had some reputation for talent. My aunt was the imperial consort. The Xiao family was the wealthiest in Jiangnan, and I was the eldest son of the Xiao family. With my status, my father has actually arranged for me to marry a girl from the martial world. When this matter reached my aunt's ears, she wrote a letter and gave my father a thorough scolding. I didn't really mind either. After all, the girl is only 5 years old. Who can say for certain what will happen in the future? Worried that my indifferent nature might lead me to neglect Xiaodao in the future, my father started sending me a letter every few months. The first time I saw Yuan Xiaodao's portrait, I was genuinely stunned by the chaotic and messy painting skills. My father was so angry that he wrote a letter, urging Master Hongxiu to spend some silver and hire a proper painter. The paintings sent after that were much more presentable. Xiaodao's eyes were exceptionally well-formed, bright, spirited, and unforgettable at a glance. A portrait painted every 6 months, along with some small trinkets and gadgets, gradually brought her image to life in my heart. When I saw the box filled to the brim, I touched the red string on my wrist and finally admitted to myself that I was intensely curious about this fiancé of mine. And indeed, I had met Xiaodao twice before, but both encounters were so rushed that we never had a proper chance to talk. Au always says that I bring up those 2 chance encounters with Xiaodao from time to time, and he's heard it so often his ears are calloused. I could tell he was teasing me, but I'd only mentioned it to him 2 or 3 times. The first time was when Yuan Xiaodao was 13. I was passing through a place with a few friends when we ran into bandits blocking the road. Yuan Xiaodao happened to ride by on a horse, and with just one blade, he took down all 30 of the bandits. Her blade technique was fierce and unrestrained, moving with such incredible speed that it was truly breathtaking to behold. I recognized her at a glance and was left speechless for a long moment. Master Hongxiu had mentioned in her letter that Xiaodao had made some progress with her blade skills. But only upon seeing it for myself did I truly understand what it meant to be a martial artist in a world of flashing blades and chilling shadows. The knife cut off the bandit leader's head and put it in a bag, intending to claim the reward at the government office. She rode her horse toward me and said with a slight embarrassment, "Young master, could you lend me a bag of water?" I handed her the water pouch. Usually eloquent, I found it unexpectedly difficult to even greet her. The knife didn't give me a chance. She thanked me and then left. Many times since then, I've regretted not being able to tell her that time. If we were to meet again, I would definitely say, "Hello, Miss Yuan. I am Xiao Yu from Jiangnan. We were once betrothed." I tossed and turned, thinking again and again, if Xiao Dao were to see me and discover I'm just a frail scholar, would she regret it? The second time we met was by the banks of the Baihe River in Sunzhou. Xiao Dao was sparring with someone and missed the boarding time. She shouted from the shore, "Boatman, wait for me." I saw Yuan Xiaodao rushing from afar, leaping into the air and landing steadily on the bow of the boat, stepping on the splashing water. She seemed tired and fell asleep on the bow. Holding her sword, I sat beside her, watching her carefully. She has grown a lot, now a young lady. The path of the Jianghu is probably not easy to tread. Her clothes are simple and neat, yet very worn. With a sharp sound, Xiao Dao's blade left its sheath, and with her eyes closed, she said coldly, "If you look at me twice more, I'll gouge your eyes out." I dared not look again, and dutifully averted my gaze. It seems a somewhat beautiful Jianghu person has an even harder path to tread. That's why Xiao Dao cultivated such an intimidating aura, even though she had been quite friendly to me during our previous encounter. Once the boat docked, Xiao Dao left. I sighed helplessly, however. During both encounters, she didn't spare me a single glance. I began to wonder if my face was completely lacking in charm. But when I returned to the capital and saw how most noble ladies deliberately went out of their way to catch a glimpse of me, I started to think my face might not be so bad after all. Speaking of this encounter, Yu also asked me, "Big brother, why didn't you reveal your identity to her?" Naturally, I didn't tell Yu that I didn't dare to say it. Who would have thought that Xiao Yu, the most outstanding figure in the capital, would actually be afraid that his fiancée might not be satisfied with him? As if fearing something would make it happen, Xiao Dao coincidentally saved Yu and ended up at the Xiao family. My father wrote to say that Xiao Dao wants to call off the engagement. I was far away in the capital, and after reading the letter, I couldn't sleep all night. The next day, my attendant asked me, "Young master, weren't you in a hurry to go home? Why aren't you leaving now? What's the point of going back? To wait for Xiao Dao to break off the engagement with me?" So, I didn't go back. Strangely enough, although Yu wrote to me frequently, he never mentioned Xiao Dao. Gradually, I began to understand something. In the bloom of youth, Yu had likely developed feelings of admiration for Xiao Dao. It's strange that Yu and I have completely different personalities. Yet we always end up liking the same things. Now, even our taste in people has become the same. But Yu, while I can give up things, I can't give up people. Before I could even think of going to see Xiao Dao, the Xiao family was tragically wiped out. Your Majesty, you intend to use the Xiao family as the executioner's block for the Empress and the Sun family. The Xiao family must die. My aunt, heartbroken and devastated, confined herself to the cold palace. And I entered the Eastern Palace to become the Crown Prince's advisor. To lower his guard, I deliberately provoked Princess Yongping into humiliating me, then went to seek the Crown Prince's protection. He is an extremely suspicious man. Only when I appeared dependent on him could he let down his guard and use me. I am making plans in the capital, while Yu has already settled down in Bianzhou with Xiao Dao. I've thought countless nights that if Xiao Dao likes Yu, I would voluntarily withdraw from the engagement to let her be. But after I met Xiao Dao in the capital, I realized I simply couldn't let her go. Allowing others to stare at me in the brothel is Yongping's usual tactic, something I've grown accustomed to. It was just that day, I was locked in a room with Xiao Dao. We were lying close together on the bed, and when I saw her eyes, I recognized her. She tore off the disguise from her face and asked if I recognized her. Of course I recognized her. How could I not? The surging medicinal power within my body almost erupted at that moment. Xiao Dao, I never thought I would meet you under such circumstances. All these years, no matter how much Yongping humiliated me, my heart remained unperturbed. Only this time, I was utterly terrified. I was afraid that Xiao Dao would look down on me. In the end, I had offended Xiao Dao. Her face was flushed, but she didn't push me away. The bite mark left on Xiao Dao's neck was my warning to Yu. I could see in Xiao Dao's eyes that she was somewhat curious about me. I wanted that spark of curiosity, planted in her heart, to blossom into a flower, so I deliberately provoked Yongping, and while Yu was taking her exam, I lured Xiao Dao to the estate. Seeing me injured, she was both heartbroken and anxious. Xiao Dao is a girl who can't hide her feelings. She was always looking at me. When our eyes met, she casually looked away, but the back of her ears flushed bright red. I used to be a dull person and didn't enjoy interacting with girls. My father often worried, saying that Xiao Dao, having roamed the world, had seen and experienced much. How could someone as reserved as me ever win her favor? Now, when I'm with Xiao Dao, I effortlessly crack jokes to make her laugh and play double games with her. When I was drawing, she came over to watch, so I taught her how to draw some simple little animals. She learned quickly and cheered happily. Then she felt embarrassed. You're laughing at me. I rarely settle down to do these things. Now that I'm drawing, I find it quite interesting. It's very interesting, I said, looking at the ink on her nose and smiling. I spent 9 days with Xiao Dao at the manor in the Beijing suburbs, and as her departure neared, I confessed my feelings to her. Xiao Dao's face flushed crimson, and she didn't speak for a long time. During that half-quarter of an hour of waiting, my heart was suspended in fear that she would reject me. She said with some difficulty, "Xiao Yu, I do have some feelings for you, but it's far from the point of discussing marriage. Let's talk about this another time. Also, once the matters with the Xiao family are resolved, I will leave the capital with my master. We won't have many opportunities to spend time together, and I'm not someone who can make firm commitments. So I'm afraid I can't promise you anything. What if we had the chance to spend time together?" I asked her. Xiao Dao didn't hesitate this time and said resolutely, "Then we'll spend time together properly." She is not a girl who beats around the bush, and she answered straightforwardly. I didn't expose the perfunctory tone in her words. AU achieved the top score in the imperial examination, and under the emperor's direction, he exposed the empress's family for framing the Xiao family. The emperor forced the crown prince to rebel, taking the opportunity to settle accounts with the Sun family. AU finally learned that the dozens of lives of the Xiao family were merely pawns used by the emperor to bring down the Sun family. He walked out of the palace gate, his entire body filled with desolation. After returning home, he had a conversation with Xiao Dao and finally regained his spirit and energy. On the night before Xiao Dao left, AU and I got thoroughly drunk together. He held me, crying as hard as he did when he was a child. "Big brother, if I keep Xiao Dao trapped in the capital, will she hate me to death? Are you? I won't let you do that." I patted his shoulder to comfort him. "It's all right. In the future she will be your sister-in-law, still your family." Yu was so angry that he started fighting with me. We lay on the ground. AU said, "Big brother, I really hate you." I said, "If you're not capable, who can you blame? I gave you a chance." He kicked me angrily and started crying again. I went over and hugged him, patting his arm just like when we were kids. I spent a year with him in the capital, then went to find Xiao Dao. When I arrived in Yuzhou, it was a bright sunny day, unbearably hot. Xiao Dao was sitting at a roadside stall eating noodles, so hot that she had pressed a handkerchief to her forehead. I walked over and tapped on the table. "Miss, may I share this table with you?" Xiao Dao looked up at me, her face full of doubt and uncertainty, and she even glanced behind me several times. Xiao Dao said with a hint of embarrassment, but still spoke generously, "I always keep my word." Later, I asked her why she had such an expression when she saw me back then. She sighed and said, "Oh, I was just afraid you might have brought Xiaoye along. He wrote to me some time ago, saying the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Why, after spending the most time with him, did I end up choosing you? But at that time, I clearly hadn't chosen you either. Then tell me, why did you choose me now?" I pinched her palm and leisurely asked her. She hemmed and hawed without giving a clear reason, but in my heart, I knew it was because I somewhat resembled a you. Her initial interest in me was precisely because of those few similarities. But it's okay, we have a long future ahead of us. Plenty of time to get along well. The end.